Oh, okay, so we need to record. Let me start recording. This is recording now. Stop sharing. We got Abraham here too, huh? Okay, you guys can see the screen perfectly well, right?
Yes.
All right, good afternoon from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania here. I know it's still early in the morning for Joe over there. This is Chenping Wu. I will be your host for today. And we have Joseph Amato, the district director of SBA on the line here. And we invited him as a keynote speaker for our event today for all the questions and answers because he is the direct source. He's specialized in PPP. Matter of fact, Joe is one of the ones who actually wrote the PPP2 plan strategy. So a lot of you guys definitely want to be hearing what Joe has to share. And then we also have Quinn Yu here, who will be our translator for Joe. Last time we had a Chinese event already, so this time it's mainly going to be English. But for anything Joe says, Quinn will be translating as well. So this event is sponsored by World Financial Group, Team Attraction from South Philadelphia group here. And I'm really excited to share with you a little bit about PPP2. Okay, so why don't we just get started? So for PPP2, there's 3 methods of applying, right? We all know that there's 3 ways. One is if you were to apply, you could apply as a 1099 independent contractor with 1099K. You could also as well, or you could apply as a sole proprietor, or you could apply with entities with any entities with W-2 employees. We recommend you to always pick one and stick with it. You cannot go in between like, oh, I want to apply as an independent contractor and then I also want to be sole proprietor. No way. You got to pick one and stick with it, right? Good thing there's translation already. And also some updates with PPP2. We always know that with PPP, businesses have to be incorporated before February 15, 2020. So if your business hasn't been incorporated before February 2020, then you're not qualified for PPP. If you are already incorporated, then you are qualified. For the second PPP round 2, the requirement that you have to hit is that you have to have there is 25% or up in reduction of your business from one of the quarters. It has to be the same quarter. Say example for 2019 and 2020, it has to be one of the same quarters must have more than 25% drop in business. And we're going to say it. I mean, we're going to explain it in more detail in a bit. But in order for you to qualify for PPP2, that is one of the must requirements you have to fulfill. And another good information or another good news is that if you are a business with NAIC code starting with 72, you will be qualified for 3.5 times. And what that means is that the multiplier gets to be 3.5. Instead of 2.5, you're qualified to get more money. And we're going to talk about that in a bit as well. So let's talk about the quarters, understanding how the quarters work, right? They have to be the same quarter. They have to be the, if it is quarter, say example, gross sales of quarter 1 or quarter 2 or quarter 3 or quarter 4 for 2019 and 2020. It has to be the same quarter. See how I highlight it in different color? Is because it has to be in that same quadrant in order to qualify. You cannot qualify for, you can't compare to 2019 quarter 1 with 2020 quarter 2. You have to compare the same, right? The only exception we will have is that if your business started November 2019, for example, or October of 2019, if you don't have a full quarter in 2019, then you could use the first quarter of 2020 to compare with any of the other quarters in 2020. So that is, that you have to show. And an example here, say example, if you had compared second quarter of 2019 and 2020, there is 28% drop, then you will qualify. You just need 1 quarter to fulfill that 25% drop. You will be qualified. Let's say 17%. The quarter one show only 17%. Obviously, you cannot use that quarter because it didn't drop more than 25%. Likewise, fourth quarter, for example, this is just an example. Your sales, drops could be different from this example, but I just want to make sure, you understand that you just need 1 quarter to fulfill. So in this scenario, you'll notice that there's 2 quarters that's more than 25%. You just need to pick one. You don't need to do both, okay? And here we have the links already supplied here for people to apply. Now, for PPP1, for the first draw, let me share with you what first draw is. So it's only for those people who have never applied for PPP before or never got funding. Some of you guys may have applied but never got funding. You could still apply for PPP1 or a first draw. And you click this link to apply instead of this link over here. Must click on this link. And for earlier, we talked about that 3.5 multiplier. Because you're applying as first draw, you are no longer qualified for that 3.5 multiplier. Along with that, you're also, there's pros and cons, right? The con is that you're not going to get that 3.5 multiplier. But the good part is that you're not gonna have to prove that 25% drop. So there's always pros and cons to it. And then the second draw, like I already shared with you, click on this link to apply. And with this link, you have to show that there's 25% drop. And then the other one was that you have to have, 25% drop, and also, what is it? Yeah, there you go. That's pretty much it.
You're talking about 3.5 times.
Oh yeah, you have the 3.5. That's right. Thank you, Quinn, for the reminder. Okay, so here we talk about the materials that you need. What are some materials that you need? This is actually the full set of everything that you need to upload, but not everybody needs to upload everything. So I'm going to share with you guys what you need. This is the chart I would highly, highly, highly recommend you guys to, to screenshot it, whatever it is. I have, let me go back. I have this front and back of driver's license for all owners 20% and up. This is something you must have to upload. Okay, this is not a question mark. Everybody have to upload their driver's license. But what does a 1099 or a 1099K applicants need? Well, I want to remind everyone on the application, you want to put 1 for number of employees because you're just applying for 1 person. And along with that, if you're using your 1099 or 1099K, make sure you're checking the box for independent contractor. I want to say again, independent contractor. Independent contractor. That's the answer if you're going to be using 1099 or 1099K. I got people asking me still that question, even though last time we did a Zoom and I wrote it down. People still ask me. So this time, no more of that question, okay? All right. And then what do you need to prove? You need to provide your 1099. You need to provide the 1099K. So it's either 1099K or the front and back, and also the front and back of your driver's license. And some of you guys have questioned, what do I need to fill out for my quarter 2 and quarter for this part? You actually could just put in zeros for all of them. You could put zeros in for all of them, only for 1099 and 1099K. But that doesn't mean you do not have to, provide evidence for 25% drop. You do have to when the bank asks you for it, or when SBA need it from you. But for the application purpose, you could actually just put 0 in for only this column, guys, only this column. And then for sole proprietors, you're still applying as 1 employee. You need your drivers back and front, and also, for anyone who are 20% and up. And also for the, gross receipts, you need to upload your gross receipts, the quarter 20, you need to upload it, right? Your 2019 tax return, and also proof of payroll. You need all of that. You know, if it is in this column, you need to upload that. If you don't upload that, your application probably not gonna go through. And then for entities with W-2s, INC, LLC, S Corp, C Corp. One, I still want to remind you, you have to upload your driver's license front and back for anyone who's 20% and over. And then you have to upload 2019 tax return, the payrolls on 941s, 940, article of incorporation, and 2020 quarter gross receipt, quarter 2019 gross receipts. Oh, by the way, for sole proprietors, if you have article of incorporations, you also want to put in this chart. It really breaks it down. What is it that you need? So we all know. So say example 1099, 1099K. You only need your driver's license front, back, and also your 1099, right? Well, you have all these requirements you need to fulfill. You have all these requirements to fulfill in order to move to next application, right? Then what do? Well, take a screenshot of this picture too if you want to. You can upload a picture like this, says not applicable to business, and upload it. And that fulfills that requirement on the application. So you can move on to next step, right? I just want to remind people, whoever who is applying for using 1099 or 1099K, a lot of Uber drivers and independent contractors out there. This is a perfect time to you based off this, right? If it's 1099, whatever name that's on here, this is very important. Whatever name that's on here, that's the name, business legal name on the application. You see the application says business legal name. That name has to match. If it says your personal name, you use your personal name for business legal name. But if the business legal name is your company's name, use your company's business legal name there, right? Same goes. If it is your EIN number, then you're going to use your EIN number. If it is your social security number, then you're going to use your social security number. Now, when it comes down to the calculation for the 100,000, if your money is more, if the money you receive from 1099 is more than 100,000, then it's still equal to 100,000. It's still equal to 100,000. You're going to do the math, divide by 12, which is 8333.33 times 2.5. If you're starting with a NAIC code with 3.5, with a 72, then it's multiplied by 3.5. So if that was the case here with a 2.5 multiplier, you're qualified for 2833.32. If you're using a multiplier for 3.5, the money you will receive is 29,000 something. I didn't do the math, so you guys can do it. But it's just start out with 29 something. If it doesn't, your calculation is wrong. Okay, so now if we are talking about any amount that's less than 100,000, you're going to use that amount. Say example. This is an example. Let's say if the amount is 80,000, for example, you do the same thing. Divide by 12 times 2.5 or 3.5, whatever the multiplier is. And that is your amount that you will be approved for, okay? Make sure you're using whatever money amount that's on here. Only 100,000 above gets a special treatment there. So if you have a 1099K, you have a 1099 NEC form, it all qualifies. What line do you need to look for? You need to look at line 1A for 1099K, which look at here, 1A, 100K, right, for example. Or 1099 NEC, you look at line 1, right? Line 1 over here, then whatever amount that is, you're going to put that in, okay? All right, let's move to the next slides. Okay, so I'm going to go really quickly with the questions on the form, on the application. You're going to be asked a bunch of questions. Have you been, so I just want to let you guys know, question 1, 2, 4, and also 5 are answered. If the questions 1, 2, 4, 5 are answered yes, the loan will not be approved. Well, those questions are pretty much asking, are you doing, have you done anything bad, right? Obviously, the SBA want to give money to people who are good, right? Legal, who haven't done anything wrong to the justice system. So read the questions carefully, but I do want to emphasize on question number 6. Is the United States the principal place of residence for all employees included in an applicant payroll calculation above? This means that people who are applying, employees, the money that's going to be paid out to the employees, they all need to be green card and above. If they're not green card and above, they do not qualify, or they cannot be accepting this money. So make sure that, well, first of all, anyone who's applying, they need to be green card and up. That means that green card or US citizens, right? Same goes with the employees. Now, if you're a 1099 applying, you are green card holder and you're going to pay yourself, you qualify, right? So you're definitely qualified. And then many of you guys will probably, once you submit the application in a day or so, you will be receiving an email saying something like, hey, we have received your application and we're ready to submit to whoever bank, for example. This is a great sign. It means your application has been running smooth. We're going to move to next step. So make sure you use this, okay? If you have any questions, you could also send to Amanda PPP 2021 at hppcoach.com. I highly recommend you guys to, try to send in a very clean cut application, because if Amanda's team is going to spend time to review your application, maybe 5 or 10 minutes per application, she could forward to the bank. But if it's costing her more time to look at your information, there's delay on not just you, but the other people as well. And if you're just asking random questions to her on that email, someone has to spend time reading this, right? And that's the reason why we're creating this, Zoom, so people have better understanding, avoid all the, save one another more time. And I just want to share with you guys about, your resources out here. We do, our team from South Philadelphia, we do have a lot of resources here. You can always add our, QR code on WeChat, our phone number. In case you have any questions, you can reach out to us. We can help you. Same thing. We have, very diverse group of people here. Many of them are bilingual and trilingual. So screenshot them. We also have Vietnamese support group here, MyVo. So in case you have questions, you can also reach out to My. Same thing for Indonesian. If you have questions and you're Indonesian, or you have friends who are Indonesian, you can reach out to them, right? And then we have Ibrahim here, who's on the line as well, and he speaks French. And he's also a tax accountant. So if you have questions, you can also ask him as well. So, and I'm just gonna quickly go over some frequently asked questions, so we don't avoid asking the same questions, because we have Joe here. I'm trying to save him some, he already presented 14 presentations, so we definitely want him to save his voice. Okay. So first question, what is First Draw? First Draw is available for businesses and self-employed individuals who have not previously applied for PPP. Just like I've said, if you have not applied for PPP, you qualify for First Draw. Make sure you click on the First Draw application forms. And along with that, even if you did apply for PPP the first time, but if you never got funding, you are still considered as First Draw. So for second draw is for, the second draw application is for people who have received PPP money for the very first time. Click on that and you have benefits. You do have to qualify for that 25% drop in business. And then we have here, can I apply through HPP, your strategic lender, if you use a different lender before? Yes, if you had applied with different banks before. And this is time I just want to share, because I know I have a lot of people come to me and tell me, hey, Chenping, what is my loan number? Or Chenping, how do I get connected with my, my typical bank, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Chase Bank, Citizens Bank. These are big banks. And I found out that a lot of these big banks, they don't really have a good, support after the application. post-sale support. There isn't much, right? Because I personally, I know we were trying to call Wells Fargo. They said, oh, you need to call SBA. And then SBA said, you need to call your bank. And then your bank said, you need to call SBA. Who do I talk to? I don't know. We have to get back to you in 5 days. 5 days later, nothing, right? Versus with Amanda, for example, which HPPP, all you have to do is shoot an email. Hey, what is my loan number? Typically, she'll be able to respond to you. So it's the support that you're going to get that's going to be a little bit better than others. If I applied using W-2 payroll in the first round, and now I want to use a 1099, can you? Absolutely. You could switch up. The only time you could switch up the strategy is now from PPP1 to PPP2, but you cannot switch during the application. So yeah, you can. How do I apply for loan forgiveness of my first PPP loan? That is a question. So so if it is with Fountainhead Commercial or Greater what is it? Greater Nevada. Yeah.
Greater commercial lending.
Right, Greater Commercial Lending. We're still finalizing that, but once it is good, I believe that you guys just submit one form, and I'm gonna share with everybody the easy the 3508 Simplify Easy form, which is one pager. We're just gonna finish. It's just one page where we don't really have to do much. So much easier, which Joe can actually share with you more a little bit in a bit. But we don't want to go too much into loan forgiveness yet, because we want to probably do another Zoom session just talking about loan forgiveness so everybody have a better idea. That pretty much concludes my presentation. Oh yeah, yes, this is a very good question. Should I apply for loan forgiveness before I apply for a second draw? The answer is probably you want to prioritize your second draw application first and then apply for loan forgiveness, because there could be a lag right now. So if your question is like, can I apply for loan forgiveness first? Wait and apply for your second draw. Get your second draw money first, and you can apply for loan forgiveness for both of them. So yeah, that's really all I have to share. And I'm going to open up the panel for Q&As with Quinn and also Joseph Amato. I just want to say, how lucky we are to have Joseph Amato on the line with us. He is the district director of SBA. Can we spotlight Joe real quick, and also Quinn? Am I the co-host? I'm not, right? Oh, yes, great. So yes, let me add a spotlight. Okay, great. So I'm really excited. One, I do want to show my appreciation and gratefulness for inviting Joe for hopping on to the Zoom call with us, because we're very privileged individuals here. Joe definitely doesn't have to be so going the extra mile to help us, and he's been really good at answering all the questions and helping our community. And, when I asked Joe, hey, we need to do one, right away, he says, let's do it, right? So we're a very, very privileged group of people, and you have the best strategic guy, the guy who actually wrote the PPP2, right? So he knows the ins and outs. So if you want to know how to maximize, this is the time we're opening up the panel for Q&A. And I also want to appreciate Quinn for amazing presenter, also a great translator. We always appreciate you. So I'm going to just take over the mic for, Joe and Quinn, and I'll ask questions for people if needed to. Quinn, do you want me to ask the questions or?
Yeah, I think that will be better. You can
Okay.
ask. Yeah.
You guys just want me on the chat too. All right, cool.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Chenping. One clarification: I did not write the legislation for PPP2. I was involved in the sort of the review and the formulation process, as were many other people. But yes, definitely involved in reviewing, definitely involved in upgrading it, as I was in PPP1. It is always a moving target, because you're not only dealing with applicants, you're dealing with banks, you're dealing with the government, and it's all been put together so quickly that yes, I do not take any credit for writing the policy. I only take credit for being involved in the implementation of the policy and reviewing it. The one thing that I want to make sure that I make clear, if you have applied for PPP1 and you were a corporate entity, you were not a sole proprietor or a independent contractor, one thing I want to correct in what you said, Chenping, if you apply for PPP2, it may be difficult the way you outlined it to change status. Because if you applied for PPP1 and you had employees, you W-2 employees, you're getting paid or you're getting funding based on the on those employees. If all of a sudden, for some reason, you fired all your employees between PPP1 and PPP2, and you became a sole proprietor working for somebody else, but still within the same business, yes, you could use that 1099 for PPP2, but I would say that's 1 in a billion that's possibly that could happen. What you normally want to do, and what most people are doing, what we're recommending, is whatever you use for PPP1 to get your funding, unless there's been a drastic change, use the same information for PPP2. So if you don't believe you're going to have employees going forward on PPP2, obviously you have to change the information, but then you may not be eligible. So it's a slippery type of question the way you outlined it, and I want to make sure that everybody understands that. And something like that is on a case-by-case basis. And just reach out to me on WeChat, reach out to Chenping and Quinn, and definitely we'll get you answers, or talk to Amanda if you're dealing with HBP. I saw a question from Kevin Zhang. Can an S Corp use a 1099K instead of W-2 for applying? Understand, Chenping Wu was very, very clear in the beginning. An S Corp either has employees or it doesn't. You can't use 1099 contractors as part of your PPP application. If you have 1099 contractors, they have to apply on their own. So to answer your question, Kevin, no, you cannot use 1099Ks or 1099 miscellaneous or anything else if you're applying as a Schedule S Corp or any Corp or an LLC. Independent contractors file on their own for PPP. You have to use your W-2 employees, and in some cases you could use your K-1 distributions, or you can use your Schedule C. But you cannot use 1099s in any way, shape, or form if you are a business entity applying for PPP.
So, Joe, I want to emphasize that. So let's say if they're a restaurant and, they have W-2s, but then let's say that they have 1099K. If using 1099K will allow them to apply for more and get more, can they do that? Because I know that I just want to double check on that. Yeah.
A business entity cannot use any 1099 whatsoever to calculate their monthly payroll average. A individual sole proprietor or independent contractor can use the 1099K or 1099 miscellaneous to apply for PPP2 or 1 on their own. But a business entity can never use the 1099 of any type or independent contractor information of any type to basically secure PPP loans. What will end up happening is, if they do, they may get away with it for funding, but when it comes to forgiveness, they won't be forgiven, or they won't be forgiven that portion. So 1099, if you are a business entity, you cannot in any way, shape, or form use 1099s to calculate your monthly payroll average.
Okay, got it.
Let's see.
It says on the application, it asks, do you want to provide documents substantiating the applicant 25% reduction in the gross receipts at this time? Should I click yes or no? Thank you, Joe.
Okay, now that only may attribute to whether or not your loan is 150,000 or less, because I know that you have to provide documents to the bank for certain on any loans over 150,000, any PPP for over 150,000. You do have to prove out that you have the 25% or greater loss in revenue. You have to either prove it when you submit, or you have to prove it when you go to forgiveness. Most banks like HPP is asking for that information up front, and they're putting in the system up front because they want to make sure you get forgiveness. So if you are if you're any PPP applicant, as Chenping Wu showed earlier, you have to do the quarter-to-quarter analysis to basically show the 25% or greater loss in revenue. If you do not have that information, HPP won't let, and most banks won't let you go through, even though the SBA says it's not necessary under 150, the banks are protecting you by asking for it up front because they want to make sure you get forgiveness. The banks do not want to hold this loan on their books if you're not forgiven. They want to be sure you're forgiven. So work with them. If they ask for it, give it to them. If you have any questions, just reach out to us and we'll get you an answer.
Okay.
Can you use the 1099K to apply? Yes, we've said that several times. Yes, absolutely.
So actually, Maya wants to know who can use the 1099K, because a lot of 1099Ks are, let's say, distributed from a, like from a credit card company. So who could use it?
Okay, so say you have a business, an online business, and say, I'm just using an example, say it's like Amazon, and you're selling your product, and Amazon is then paying you, or the entity you're working with, your online business is paying you a portion or a percentage or a commission on what you sell. That is revenue to you as an individual and or your business if you've set it up as a sole proprietorship. So say you get $100,000 payment from Blue Sky Online Resource Center, okay? That 1099K is revenue to you for work that you have performed. You can put that 1099K for 100,000, or if it's 150,000, only up to 100,000, because remember, you can never exceed the 100,000 per individual cap. And so if you basically have received that money, divided by 12 times 2.5, you're going to get yourself about $20,832. Okay, so people that get revenue or earn revenue through 1099K can use that as your calculation. Business just got took over mid 2020, but the EIN status. Okay, so Chenping Wu and I talked about this at length yesterday, and I got clarification yesterday. A lot of businesses changed hands in 2020. And they are going to basically, if the business you purchased applied for PPP1, because remember, you have to, there's a couple of things I want to clarify that you have to do in order to basically apply for PPP2. But say you applied for PPP1, or the former company did, and you bought that company. If when you bought that company, you maintained like you did a stock purchase, or you bought the company as a whole, you didn't buy the assets of the company, you bought the company as a whole, and the EIN number stays intact, you can apply for PPP2 for that company you purchased. If your EIN number from PPP1 to PPP2 is the same. If you're bought only the assets of the company, and you basically had to get a new EIN number, a tax identification number, you cannot apply for PPP2, even if the former owner applied for PPP1. Now, if the former owner applies for PPP2 and he no longer owns the company, it's called fraud and he's going to go to jail. So you have to be very certain that the linchpin between being in PPP1 and PPP2, if you're the new owner of a company that existed before, you have to basically make sure that it's the same corporate entity. It's the same tax ID number, okay? So understand that is going to be important. So let me just interject real quickly. If you got PPP1, you're eligible for PPP2. If you have 300 employees or less, you're eligible for PPP2. But remember, in PPP1, you had to be 500 employees or less. So if you're now 300 employees and less and you receive PPP1, you're now eligible for PPP2. If you're over 300 employees, you're not eligible for PPP2. And also remember the 25% reduction rule. Even to be eligible to fill out the application, you have to have a eligible 25% or greater reduction in revenue quarter compared to quarter, 2019, 2020, or in some cases, first quarter of 2020 to second, third, or fourth quarter of 2020. So those are really important facets you have to remember. I'm just going to look real quick. Remember also this, most of you on this line are not going to be affected by this, but in PPP1, the first draw maximum was $10 million. In PPP2, the first draw maximum is $2 million. So not everybody on this line is going to get $2 million or gotten more than $2 million last time, but it's important to know that. Also, remember, if you are a restaurant operation or a hotel operation, you can get 3.5 times your monthly payroll average as opposed to 2.5 times. So be really understanding that that with your PPP2, if you are a restaurant or hotel, your NACE code, which Chenping Wu can talk about in the future, is 72, begins with 72. You're eligible for 3.5 times your PPP monthly average. And then the other side of it is, in order to be eligible for PPP2, you must have either used or intend to use all the PPP1 funds. So if you received your PPP1 and you've used it all in the 8 or 24 weeks, then you're eligible for PPP2. If you receive your PPP1 funds and you haven't used them all, as long as you intend to use them all, it's a very important word, intend. Of course you intend to use them all. You want to get PPP2. You have to make sure that that you state that you intend to use the PPP1 funds before you're eligible for PPP2.
Thank you, Joe, for the additional details. We also have a question here. Can you clarify about the non-sole proprietor business who could use 1099K for credit card merchants to apply?
Okay, let me understand. Say that again, because I want to
So
understand.
pretty much it's non-sole proprietor. So you're talking about so it's not independent contractors. It's pretty much the one W-2 entities, like if they could have the 1099Ks to apply, so can we talk about maximum funding, or there's priority in distributing with W-2? Say example, some businesses with 1099Ks, they could significantly apply for so much more money. But if they're just using their W-2 to apply, they may only be able to get like 10 grand, for example. But using a 1099K, they could be qualified for 30,000 if they're using close to it. 20. Let's say 29,000, for example.
No. You're confusing revenue with payroll. Remember, PPP is based on your monthly payroll average. A 1099K could receive $1 million in the company.
Right.
Okay. He's only going to be, or she's only going to be available for $100,000.
That's right. But that's still it. But just with that 100K is still able to help someone to get more because they're.
No, not really. I mean, they can get $20,832. That's all they can get. It doesn't matter if they're at 1099K and it flows through to a business entity. I had somebody that gave me a 1099 miscellaneous that was $2.5 million in 1099 miscellaneous as an independent contractor. Right. You know how much they got? $20,832.
Right. No, I know, we know the pros and cons, but what I'm trying to say is if W-2, if they are using the W-2 to apply and they are going to get less than 1099Ks, can we use 1099Ks as priority to apply? That's the question.
No, it's going to be based on what personal revenue you received. There's no priority, there's no change. The 1099K is more, it can be an individual centric or could be a business centric. If it's sent to your business, if you have that type of business that's receiving that kind of or large amounts of 1099Ks, you're probably set up as a Schedule C on your personal tax returns. If you're set up as a Schedule C on your personal tax returns, remember that could be a problem because then at that point, you're better off submitting the 1099K as itself than submitting your Schedule C because most of businesses don't look to pay a lot of taxes and their Schedule C could be a very small number as far as their net income. And then, if it's only $10,000 in net income, that's divided by 12 times 2.5 is not a lot of money. So they're better off in a situation like that to basically just submit a 1099K as an individual, as a contractor, and basically get your $20,832.
Okay, so I think for the 1099K about the W-2 entities, for further details, because there are special cases, contact us and we will communicate with Joe. There is 1 or 2 cases where Joe approved the situation we talked about, but not everyone is. So you guys have to communicate because it's a special topic. But I think one thing we do learn is that if you're a corporation with entities, use that instead of use that. That's it. That's the number one priority. We're gonna continue with the question here.
I see this Kevin from this question from Kevin. Kevin, you got to understand what we're saying. If your revenue in 2020 was similar to 2019, but you were closed down in April of 2020, you have to do a quarter to quarter analysis. It doesn't matter how much money you made in 2019 to 2020. Most businesses did really well in the first quarter of 2020 before COVID hit. Then from April to June, April, May, June, from April, May, and June, most businesses, because of the national shutdown, really were hurt badly. So if you look at your second quarter of 2020 and you compare it to your second quarter of 2019, which is what you're supposed to do, I would imagine if you were closed down in April of 2020, you should have a 25% or greater loss in revenue. If you don't, then you're not eligible. That simple. If for whatever reason your second quarter of 2019 isn't 25% or greater in revenue than your second quarter of 2020, then you will not be eligible. That simple. But most people I'm talking to, their businesses took a dive in the second quarter of 2020, and that's the best comparative quarter, 2019 second quarter to 2020 second quarter. Okay. So if not, then you're not eligible. And people have said, well, I'm at 24.7%. Am I eligible? No, if you're not 25% or greater, you're not eligible. 25% or greater loss in revenue, quarter compared to the quarter, 2019 to 2020. Got it. Thank you, Kevin. I wasn't clear. Joe just said earlier, he was saying sole proprietor owner can use either. Oh my gosh. Okay. If you have a Schedule C and you receive 1099s, in some cases, if your Schedule C is highly profitable, yes, use Schedule C. If your Schedule C, like most businesses, has a low profit in your net income, then use your 1099. Your 1099 is going to get you more money. Hopefully that's clear.
Yeah, that's very clear.
We still go back on if it's business entity, if their 1099K gets them more, so they use 1099K to apply or still use the W-2
absolutely.
payroll?
Yeah, that's what I just said.
No. You just said W-2s with entities, Joe.
Oh, what'd I say?
W-2s with, okay, entities with W-2s. If 1099Ks can help them apply for more amounts, can they use their 1099Ks to apply instead of the W-2?
No. He didn't ask that.
I know. Quinn asked that.
Okay. No, remember, Quinn, you can't use a business entity in a 1099. With a business entity, it's either got to be W-2, the W-2 payroll income, and whether you have one employee or 195 employees, you're going to use that. You're going to divide. You're going to usually use, the bank is going to ask you for either your 940 for 2019, which is a compilation of all your payroll for the year of 2019. If you used it for PPP1, you can use it again for PPP2. If for whatever reason you had a higher payroll in 2020, then you're going to use either your 4 941s, your each quarter 941 for 2020, or like ADP has already put out the 2020 940s. You can use your 2020 940 for your PPP2. But at the end of the day, as a corporate entity, that's what the bank's going to ask you, or a business entity, LLC, corporate C, corporate S, and a partnership, they're always going to ask for that. If you have employees, that's what they're going to pay you on.
Okay, got it. So Juan here, established business in October 2020. No.
You know that answer. If you're not established before February 15, 2020, you're not eligible for PPP.
Juan, are you saying year 2019 or 2020, Juan? Did you have a typo?
No, that was not a typo. That's why I said I hope this is not a repetitive question.
No,
yeah, that was a very hopeful thought.
You have to be established before February 15, 2020 in order to be eligible for PPP, 1 or 2.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Anybody else have questions? You guys can unmute yourself.
I have one situation. So I mean, since we're recording, so I guess people could watch it later. So this is a question for came up last time. If someone had established their business before February 15th in 2020, but because of COVID-19, originally they planned to start the business March 2020, but then due to COVID-19, they couldn't start their business until August 2020, right? Can they apply?
No.
Even though their business is established before?
The whole idea of PPP is to augment, replace, allow the federal government to give you funds to cover payroll, whether it's for you as an individual, where you're basically getting compensation, or whether it's you as a business. If you have not established payroll in the first quarter of 2020 or any time before, there's no PPP to have. So yeah, I mean, you may have established a business, you may have created the corporate charter, you may have done everything you need to do, but if you did not create a payroll before February 15, 2020, there's no PPP. There's no calculation.
I'm really glad you're getting that clarification, because last time we did get a different answer.
From who? Not from me.
Not from you, from Amanda.
No, if you don't have a payroll before 2/15/20, what do you know, let me put it this way. We had a business that opened up basically February 1st, and their first payroll was $100,000. The problem was it's a decent payroll. And the problem is you take the 100,000 divided by 12, basically times 2.5, the business only got $20,832. So, you know, you basically have to understand that everything that we do in PPP is payroll driven. It's to keep people employed or keep independent contractors, give them some kind of compensation, you know, to basically keep them alive, to put food on the table.
Thank you. We appreciate that. I think it's definitely helping us with food.
All right. Kevin has another very good question. As I said, even though it says on the form, the 2483 SD form, that documentation is not required for PPP loans under 150,000, most banks, including HPP, are asking for that backup documentation up front. Why? Because it is in their best interest that they know that you have the 25% or greater reduction up front. They do not, even if you get a $20,832 PPP, they do not want to be saddled with. They don't want to keep that loan on the books for 5 years at 1% interest because you weren't forgiven. So it states on the application it's not required, but if your bank, if HPP asks for you for that information up front, they're doing it to protect you. Very simply, they're doing it to protect you.
Man, Joe, this session with you, I'm so glad we are having it. I realize we need to do more because you have much more clear answers for us.
Well, anytime you need me.
I feel bad if I have been sharing wrong information, because you know we're so many scenarios are coming up and we're always challenged, and we ask you, and then I think maybe it's because of every time there's a little bit different scenario, that's why answers may be different. But we're really glad that you are giving us more direct information, and we are recorded, so for future references we will share with others. Okay, I have
here's a good question here. Now, if you're an independent contractor and you don't keep financial statements, you don't keep monthly P&Ls, you don't keep quarterly P&Ls, you basically run your business by how much money is in your checkbook. I understand that. That's good. A lot of people have been in a situation where they don't keep financial statements. Well, it says in the policy specifically, and we were very happy to make sure they included it, that recommendation. So you're an independent contractor and you make on average, say in the second quarter of 2019, your bank statements for that quarter, that would be April, May, June, your bank statements for that quarter said you made $125,000. Good for you. All right. But you don't keep P&Ls in 2020. You never have. You can basically provide with sort of a cover sheet, and I suggest you do it that way. You do like an Excel spreadsheet, and you show deposits in April of 2019 was, 10,000. Deposits in May of 2019 was 55,000. Deposits in June of 2019 was 50,000. Okay. So you have all that number, and that equals, I think, what, $115,000. Okay. So now what you're also going to do, and you put that on the first column of your Excel spreadsheet, and you have all the backup statements that you scan in as well. You also scan in your your April, May, and June bank statements for 2020. And you create another column, and you say, April, I got 0. May, I got 10,000. And June, I got 20,000. So now you have 115,000 in 2019 on those bank statements, and you have, I guess, 30,000 in your bank statements for 2020. That is your backup that you can use with your lender as an independent contractor, 1099, somebody that does not keep a P&L. That is a way you can prove your basically 25% or greater loss in revenue. Understand something. I hold a major position with the federal government, okay? But what Chenping Wu's doing, what Quinn's doing, what Amanda's doing, what people that are doing that are out there right now getting this information to you is vital to this government program being successful. I'm not, and I appreciate everything Chenping Wu has said, because I have been available since March. I've been on, counting 9, almost 140 webinars since last March. And the reason being is, even though I hold a high ranking position in the government, anything we do is useless if you guys don't understand it. I don't do this because I'm trying to get my face on a webinar or on TV or anything else. There is a lot of responsibility that comes with the respect of this position. So understand that we're all trying to do the best we can in getting you this information out here, because we want you to survive. I'm very hopeful that 2021 will be a great year for all business. I'm very hopeful that mostly everybody who suffered greatly in 2020 will do really well in 2021. And we're hoping these programs help you get there.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for always caring for our community. Now, I do want to share an example. Commission statements are pretty good as well. If your company provides you something like a commission statement, for example, this may be a really good example comparison Excel sheet, like like 2019 quarter. Typically, most people are probably using their second quarter because they probably took that dip. I know real estate agents, for example, they're the ones, like for Philadelphia, we had state shelter in place order, right? So how can you sell a house if you're staying home? So probably your second quarter is probably a good example. And I just, whatever numbers you are having, whatever, et cetera, you put in. And, as long as more than 25%, let's say, 70,000, for example, this shows that you had 30% in reduction. And this is very sufficient proof of evidence. For bank statements, it would be really nice if you have something like a commission statement. Is easier. If you really want to show your bank statement, you could, but I think it's going to be overwhelming for anyone to look at.
All they have to concentrate on is on deposits.
Yeah.
So if you created the same form like this and put bank statements and put deposits for whatever quarter that they asked for, that's just because that's all you have to concentrate on. If you are a business operation or individual, a sole proprietor, and that's the only other way you could figure out what your revenue is what was deposited into your bank account.
Sounds good. Okay, so here recently the 3508S, I'm gonna get the 35 easy form out for people just in case. Maybe Quinn can translate real quick. Let me just get the form out real quick.
Yeah, and the 3508EZ is just basically a very simplistic form. You provide X amount. See, understand, everybody under 150,000 is supposed to be 100% forgiven. But they still want to collect the data, the federal government does, want to collect the data associated with every loan. So, when you look at, I think the average loan size for PPP1 was like $176,000. That means there was a lot of people that got $20,832 or less. I mean, I think the smallest PPP we did was like $1,800. So, but again, that $1,800 might have been a month of food for that family. So to me, it doesn't matter how much we apportion out or how much we award you. It matters you just apply, you apply correctly, and you apply truthfully. Somebody just asked, Minvo, is there a minimum? Most banks don't want to do under $2,500. I know that I've talked with the banks associated with HPP, and they are without a doubt going to do anything that you apply for, because even nobody wants to see a $200 PPP, but that $200 might mean food for you for a week or two, and God knows that's what's really important to me.
So I'm going to share the screen about where to get that form, and we will be sharing in our WeChat groups and also Facebook. You just really quickly go on to SBA form, direct source, don't go anywhere. And then it's called the easy form. There's a difference between 3508 and 3508 easy. It's supposed to be easy. Pick the easy one if you're getting money less than 150,000. So click on this. It's updated, the 19th. And you could download the form. Let me download the form.
Yeah, let me take. Yeah, I mean, that's how simple it is. It's really simple.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna go over this document soon, because I'm hearing this is live now. So we're maybe in a week or so, or 2 weeks, we're gonna do this. Definitely. But it's very easy.
I can go over this. Let me also bring up another important point when I look at this, just because this is for PPP1.
Yeah.
The other thing that's really important with PPP2, remember in PPP1, 60% or greater of the PPP funding was to be used for payroll, and 40% or less were for other eligible PPP expenses. And they included rent, they included mortgage interest, and they included utilities, sort of occupancy related. With PPP2, 60% or greater can be used for payroll, but 40% or less can be used for rent, mortgage interest, utilities, and they added operational expenses. So your business, any expense that your business takes on, any property damage costs. So say you were in Seattle or maybe in Philadelphia, there were riots and they damaged your business. You can use PPP funding to up to 40% to repair or pay for the cost of repairing your business. You can also have supplier costs. So if you do have a supply chain and there's additional costs because of COVID for suppliers. So say you shipped out something normally through your business and it was X amount of money. And now because of COVID, it's X amount times $20 a shipment. That $20 in additional supplier costs in shipments to you or shipments out can be definitely included. And the last, anything you do to your business that would be considered PPE, so protection. So say you're in a restaurant and you put plexiglass dividers between your tables, or on your counter you do a plexiglass screen. That's all PPE. You buy hand sanitizer, masks, gloves for your employees, even for your customers. That can all be definitely paid for with PPP funds in PPP2. So just remember, there are some additional expenses that also come into play. And the last thing I'll say, which will confuse the daylights of everyone, say in your PPP1 you receive $250,000 and you're happy. But say in your calculations you really realize you should have really received $325,000 because something was missing in the paperwork or how it was evaluated. Under the current program, you can go back to your original lender and say, listen, this is what you gave me. This is what I should have gotten. Here's all the backup documentation. I want to increase my PPP1 to where it should have been. Guess what? You're allowed to do that. So I'm really confused everybody.
How do you do that, Joe? How do you do that? You know what? Okay, let me show you an example. I have an example of someone who wrote the right numbers, but at the end so it's the example, they would qualify for $20,833. They mistyped it saying $20,533. Can they still get that 500? I mean, they wrote $333. Can they get the $500 back?
Well, it's not that they're getting back. Can they get that additional award? Yes, they can.
How do they get it? Is it on the
They
second
have to go back to
form?
the original lender and explain them what happened.
Oh, okay.
And remember, the lender's writing the check, so the lender can basically award them that difference.
Got you.
So we contact Amanda if we apply with Amanda the first time?
Yes.
And
No, well, what'll happen is, and understand the way I understand how it works. Amanda has several lenders that she applies through.
Yeah.
One of them for a lot of you was Greater Commercial Lending or Greater Nevada Credit Union.
Yep.
Two things that have happened with that in conversations and negotiations with them. Remember before in the PPP1, Greater Commercial Lending was asking for a Nevada business license. They're no longer asking for that. They were also asking you if you wanted to become a member in the credit union. They're no longer asking for that either. They're just processing PPP2s. That's fine. What Greater Nevada Credit Union did is they sold their PPP loans to Fountainhead. So most of you are getting forgiveness documentation or notification from Fountainhead. That's because they bought all the PPP loans from Greater Commercial Lending or Greater Nevada Credit Union. So it's all legitimate. Sometimes I get WeChats that say, oh my gosh, is this legitimate? Is this fraud? Is this a scam? No, not all loans were sold to Fountainhead, but Fountainhead bought a great amount of the loans from Greater Commercial Lending. So the two of them have sort of worked together to sort of expand their firepower because they're both nationally lending across the country to help more people. And Greater Commercial Lending is probably the most 1099 friendly bank out there. So it's definitely been helpful.
So I want to take some time to emphasize this part. Some of you we're spending a lot of time talking about 1099s because we do know a lot of people who are, who have 1099s. If you want maximum funding, you probably want to apply with Amanda because only Amanda's bank, well, not really Amanda's bank, but the bank that Amanda is connected with allow you to use the full 1099. You don't have to look at Schedule C, line 31. A lot of the banks outside, they will accept your 1099, but they're going to also look at your line 31, which means you're going to get much less money. So if you want maximum funding, definitely reach out to Amanda. Yes.
There was a rule change by the SBA about a week ago. All you have to provide is your 1099. Banks used to ask for or require the Schedule C as well. All you have to provide is your 1099. You do not have to provide your Schedule C anymore. They realized that they were undercutting a lot of people by what their revenue is. You're an independent contractor. What you make is your revenue, is your compensation, is your internal payroll. By diminishing it, by using line 31 of Schedule C, it created havoc with everyone. So they have now basically said you do not have to provide Schedule C anymore if you're 1099. I'm looking at my 2020 income was 60% deducted from 2019, so I guess lesser. May I submit a P&L with the income comparison without expense details? If you're going to send in a P&L, it has expense details on it. So I have never seen a P&L that didn't have expense. If you do have, and this is another addition, Chenping, which I'll make your head spin. If you
No, not today, no more.
If you have a P&L for if you have a P&L from 2019, okay, and you have a P&L from 2020, and you're certifying that those are true and accurate reflections of your business, okay, that's what you have to do in that form. You can use a full year P&L with a full year P&L from 19 and 20 to prove out your 20% reduction. There are some businesses like this gentleman that had probably a 60% reduction year over year. You don't have to do a quarter by quarter if you do have year over year information.
Oh, that's nice.
Okay, so if you have a P&L for 2019 and you have a P&L for 2020, you can use that with HPP. You can use that with any bank. Basically to say, here's here's the clarification of my reduction. I saw here, Amanda said the minimum for PPP was $1,000. Like I said, I doubt there's going to be anything less than $1,000. I hope there's not. But I would imagine that, if you make the case, they're going to do it. I mean, do they want to do it? Do they want to focus on something less than $1,000? No. I would ask them to basically cover it if somebody did ask.
And Joe, I do want to add right there, since Rachel said she is a realtor, she doesn't really even need to supply P&L because typically realtors are independent contractors and they're probably, sole proprietors. So,
Right.
Just commission statements like what I had showed earlier is sufficient enough to show the decrease. You don't even have to do P&Ls.
Here's commission statement, bank statement. Someone just asked, I'm 1099, I have cash deposit, bank statement. Can I count that as income? Yes, that's what we said already. The deposits that you have in your bank statement are considered income to you if you're an independent contractor. So yes, you can use that.
Nice. Very nice.
All right. Just checking to see. Somebody asked me, let me go back to WeChat. They made $40,000 on their 1099, but they apportioned a portion of it to their son or a relative or something. That $40,000 1099 that you received is your income. You divide it by 12 times 2.5, and that's what your PPP is going to be. Okay, so what you do with your 1099 income after you get it, I don't care. The banks don't care. Nobody cares. It's a 1099 they're gonna do the PPP against. All right. I think anything else you could see? I think we're about 13 minutes over. And
Okay,
anything
last
else?
question. How about first draw for 1099? So we need, okay, that is a question I definitely have answered already. So if you're first draw, first time applying using 1099, you do not need to show 25% drop.
All right, say that
Perfect
again.
conclusion. Such a great conclusion.
Say that again.
Oh, okay. No, they were just asking if it's first draw, do you need to show evidence of 25% drop?
No, not a first draw. First draw is first draw rules. Second draw has the 25% or greater reduction in revenue.
All right. I think we're at our end. Thank you very much for everyone who are hopping on. We will definitely be uploading this on YouTube, and we're also on Facebook Live. So if you come across friends who may need this information, share with somebody. We have Joseph Amato here, one of the guys who reviewed the legislation. So definitely much closer to anyone, definitely someone who knows the ins and outs of the PPP2, right? Compared to anyone else. So, and I gotta say, for sure, a lot of the answers you provide is so, more direct and clean cut than any other sources. So thank you very much for everyone for hopping on. We will be sharing this information. If you don't have our information, go back to the video or take a screen. You know what? I'll screenshot it I'll cast it real quick.
Yeah, make sure that, mostly everybody on here knows that I'm on WeChat. And, any time that I can answer questions directly on WeChat, I will be available to do so. I can't be on like 24/7. So I try to take a look at it every morning and every evening to answer questions. And then during the day, if I'm on break, I'll answer those questions as well. But that's another good way of getting questions to me or trying to figure out things. And I know Quinn and Chenping Wu are constantly answering questions. They are probably the most direct authority on WeChat to what we're doing now, because we're talking every day and we're sharing information every day to get it out to the Chinese community, the Asian community as a whole, to everybody that's involved. And what I've learned is, combined, I think there's several thousand people I'm now talking to on a regular basis on WeChat because of the different groups they've got me with and groups was involved with the first time around. But just WeChat me directly, WeChat Chenping or Quinn on the ones that they're in on with me, and we will get you an answer quickly. And if it's very, very complicated, Chenping calls me and I call her on a regular basis to basically get that information out to you. And when I have an update, I share it with her as well. So things are different than the PPP1, rely on the three of us for information, especially out in the Chinese community and the Asian communities out there. This is a real blessing for me in my position to be able to talk to the country on a regular basis so easily and get great information out there. Please, things are going to get better. I thought they were going to get better sooner, but they're going to get better, and we're all going to survive this, and it's going to be a great thing. So just hang in there, everyone.
So I hope everybody did screenshot and our contact information, because if some of you guys are still not in our chat, you know, you could add our phone number or add our QR code. So just ask us to add you onto our group. So we will. It's probably most effective way, just because you don't want Joseph to be talking to one person at a time. We want to be in a group chat, so that way all the answers are also shared on the group, so people can always look back. Although not enough people do that, but good enough. We're, you know, sometimes we're answering the same questions, but good enough. We're trying our best. So
I try to be patient. You know, and if I get annoyed, I private chat you and tell you, please, for the last time, here's the answer.
Yeah, yesterday we had a guy who was asking so many questions, and I told him to call me. And I told him, I said, if you keep asking these questions, you're gonna confuse people. I'm gonna block you. I mean, good thing that we have it resolved. We have answers for him, so we're good.
Well,
But I was like, if you keep confusing people, I'm kicking you out of our group.
Well, just nobody block me. That would be sad.
Yeah. So
it says tell them don't ban WeChat. No, don't. Well, the new, you know, one of the things that is hard for any. This is a very interesting time in our country because we just changed administrations. I have a new boss. I have a new boss's boss. So it's,
right.
you know, there's a lot for us to deal with. But we think one thing about this administration, we think they're going to be very, very proactive in providing stimulus money, even more than the previous administration. And that being the case, you know, until we're on solid footing again as a country, you know, this is necessary. We're going to have to do it. So hopefully I don't get banned from WeChat. And I know that the new administration is probably very, very much more pro. You know, this has been amazing. I mean, you know, I never could have done or gotten my voice out there in a way. And, you know, not that I care being recognized for doing it, but being one of the experts on these programs across the country has been a real blessing for me, and really given me some real satisfaction of being able to do things that if it wasn't for WeChat and social media, it never would have happened. So I get in trouble for sometimes the things I say on social media, but most of the time I'm saying very positive things that are, you know, I call them as I see them. I try to be very, very honest in the way that we approach this. And we want to help every one of you. Not one of you is unimportant to me or unimportant to this group. We want to help you all. So.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Joe. And from our team and also from our group here, we would like to say happy Chinese New Year's to you. It's coming up soon. So definitely enjoy this wonderful season. I always remember when New Year's come, there's grass coming out. So it's a new beginning. All right. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you for hopping on
Joe.
YouTube.
Thanks, Ken. Thanks, Chenping. Take care.
Thank you.